with my colleagues, beginning with Victor. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning. What's the name? How do you call Bunsen burner in Kiswahili?
Surely. Bunsen burner in Kiswahili?
Yes.
You tell us. You tell us.
I don't know. Good morning. Welcome to the program. We are glad that you are up and early with us once again. Each and every day, this is how we do it. My name is Victor. Please talk to us on our social media handles. Please tell us where you're watching us from and how is the show. The Viewpoint, we are to take a look at everything in 360. So stay around with that. We have got Wakili Ombati, who is also joining us, Godfrey Ruku, who is Member of Parliament, Mbeere North, as well as Wilson Sossion, former NAT Secretary General. That is a discussion that you don't want to miss. Regina, as you take it, alarm as money supply falls by 419 billion shillings amid economic crisis. Things are not so okay?
Well, yes, we agree. That's a particular, what do we call it? It's the KNBS monthly inflation index that also looks at the consumer price index. This indicates how much, supplies, lost jobs, turnaround times that private sector have recorded in the previous month. So when you hear there's a shortage, or rather a low supply of money, it means that businesses had a hard time with liquidity. And liquidity has been one of the issues that is affecting MSMEs, and you'll hear in one government paper or even a statement saying that we are trying to avail credit to the private sector to keep the wheel churning. That's a conversation. But now, as the statistics indicate, is that there was a shortfall in supply of money in the month under review. It means businesses were struggling to pay for their supplies, either goods and services. They were not getting money back from the investment. That is how things are. But look at that margin. If you're looking at 1.5 trillion, is it a trillion against
it's
expected
5.9 trillion last year.
Yes.
Actually this year, but last year was 5.5.
Yes.
So a fall of 419 billion.
That's a year-on-year comparison.
Right.
A year-on-year comparison that at a time like now in the country, we had a supply in the private sector. There was a liquidity supply or supply of money to the tune of 5 trillion shillings. But right now we're looking at 1.5 trillion shillings. Yeah. Also, if you ask any MSME right now, the word and the most common statement is that hakuna pesa. There is no money in supply. And that doesn't just mean you as, private sector players, even yourself.
Yes.
You can feel that even when, case in point, let me give you a case in point. When you're paying for something, how difficult is it for you to get change?
Actually, yes. Yeah. Even 500 shillings, somebody will tell you, ebu ngoja kidogo nikutafutie change.
Nikutafutie.
Or they'll ask you to just pay by your phone.
Yes. Just saying, well, it may not be one of those factors, but I'm just trying to say that there's less money in circulation. Yes, there's less money in circulation.
How can it be reversed?
Well, we improve our economy. For example, if we revitalize the private sector and ensure that access to credit comes down or rather eases up at an affordable margin. Right now, banks are lending at around 17 to 16%, give or take, wherever it is that you are borrowing these monies from. We also have SACCOs that are also giving on an comparative advantage of around 12 to 15%. But then with the CBK DAO that was actually raised, this is it was raised last week, or rather rolled out last week. It means that now you can invest in government paper from as low as 50. Currently, it's 50,000 to 100K for either T-bills or what we call T-bonds. Yes, but now the president said with the CBK DAO that was released last week is that it's going to allow you and I, from the comfort of our home, instead of saving that money in a bank. Do you know how much actually your savings in the bank earn you in interest? Around 2% per annum. So imagine if you're going to be getting an interest on your investment of around 10%.
That would have an increase.
Good. Of around 8%.
Yes.
So that is what government paper is going to do for you if they actually do the overhaul and follow the president's directive to have and allow you and I invest in government paper from the comfort of your gadget, and you do not necessarily have to have a bank account. So instead of having savings that you have put in your bank or account for 1 year earning you 2% per annum. Imagine investing in government paper for around 6 months, or even, it varies, either 6 months, you can have a year, 3 years, at a rate of 10%.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Thank you
made
for the free classes.
That was truly a free class.
That was a free class. I said, Regina.
Well, we've been keeping tabs on the economy there, and there's so much that is included in the KNBS report, including your consumer purchase index. It shows you how much or at what percentage were people, like, are Kenyans having a reduced purchase power or not? So you can get that particular report. It's always available on the KNBS website there.
All right.
Now, where were you during the Westgate attack, Victor?
I was at the Westgate site.
You're at the Westgate site?
Yes.
After or during?
Immediately after.
Immediately after, covering.
After, exactly, yes.
Vivian, where were you during the Westgate?
I was nowhere around Westgate, neither before or after. I was elsewhere, away from that scene.
Several years down the line, we are still having a conversation around, security matters, borrowing lessons from the Westgate attack. We had Dusit D2, we had the Garissa University attack, and now there's a lot of speculation following that particular chopper that crashed in Lamu, with social media, people saying, oh, it was brought down by Al-Shabaab and such. But if we go back to the stories that we had and how the media handled itself during Westgate, I think we have come of age, given how we have been handling the terror attacks in the recent past.
It's been a learning process for us as a nation.
Yes. And on a very light note, at some point during the Westgate coverage, you were told that mattresses were burning. Well,
don't go back there.
We are not going to go back. Anyway, that's just a trip down memory lane. We have so much in store for you in as far as news is concerned. Being the 20th of September 2023, it also happens to be my birthday. So I am really glad. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes. Today is your birthday?
Yes, today is my birthday. Yes.
We know how we do it. Okay, just do the news.
Okay. We just sing for her.
If you're planning to sing for me,
let Amaji.
Happy birthday.
Let Amaji. We have to do it here.
I already
Before we get to the water, how about we just sing for her?
I already took a bath.
Happy birthday to you.
No. We have a different version of happy birthday. No.
Okay, let the birthday.
We have a different version of happy birthday. We have a different version.
Which
the
one?
hip version, Happy birthday to you. That way. If you're not singing it that way, Victor, I go off.
An Nigerian like me, I'm used to the normal one. But happy birthday,
CBC,
Regina.
Happy birthday. Thank you very much.
19 feels good, right?
Oh, well, I don't want to be 19. I actually don't want to go back to my year when I was 19. I'm comfortable where I am, and I'm glad about
that's
it.
That's lovely. I love that.
Yes.
Okay.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. Now let's bring you up to speed with stories that have been making headlines. And we start off with matters politics, where Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition could be pulling from different directions, with key members of the coalition appearing to pour cold water on the ongoing bipartisan talks, in a telltale sign of what could be simmering tensions in the opposition outfit. Now, Kenya Party leader Martha Karua and Azimio's lead of Legal and Technical Committee in the talks, Jeremiah Kioni, convened a press conference Tuesday, appearing to suggest that they were no longer interested in the bipartisan talks.
Touted as unity talks between the government and the opposition, the talks are now facing an acid test as divisions rock the committee. The talks are not only threatened by lack of consensus between the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio sides, but are not threatened by sibling rivalry within the Azimio coalition.
He merely made a distinction. Today, here we are standing as Kamwene. You saw us on Friday standing as Azimio. We stand in different places.
Now Kenya Party leader Martha Karua and Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, who also doubles up as the Azimio's lead of Legal and Technical Committee in the talks, convened a press conference on Tuesday that revealed the soft underbelly of the opposition coalition. Karua and Kioni claim that the Kenya Kwanza side has repeatedly exhibited signs of non-commitment to the talks.
KK has not shown any signs of taking these issues seriously. The cost of living and the spike in fuel prices has spiked when the talks are supposed to be commencing to deal with those very issues.
At the resumption of the bipartisan talks on Monday, the committee co-chair Kalonzo Musyoka was categorical that the talks were on course and that the Azimio coalition was speaking from a united front. The remarks by CUNY appearing to disregard the committee's rule that forbid any castigation of the talks by its members in public.
Kama ni kusema tukae chini na tuheshimiane. Kama hakuna hiyo heshima, basi tuseme kimeumana. Hata Wakenya wengi wanashindwa tunafanya nini ile.
Embakasi MP Babu Owino is among the most outspoken MPs within the opposition ranks and has called on Azimio leader Raila Odinga to recall the Azimio team from the talks. On Monday, the committee announced that it would listen to oral submissions from stakeholders before discussing contentious proposals with the aim of breaking the existing deadlocks.
Now we'll be waiting to see which direction the rest of the members who are participating in the bipartisan talks are going to take following that. Now, controversy surrounds a fatal incident in Kiambu involving a mother and her son whose bodies were found floating in a well shortly after both were engaged in a quarrel. The bodies have been retrieved from the well within their compound in Kiababu village, Githunguri. According to villagers, the two had a heated argument after the son insisted on marrying a second wife. The loud exchange of words between mother and son was followed by prolonged silence, triggering suspicion among neighbors. It was upon visiting the homestead that they discovered the bodies and alerted the police.
Alikuja kwangu na akanielezea ile mambo ambayo anapitia kwa sababu ya ile mambo kijana wake ashaingia amejihuzu nayo. Kwa hivyo imekuwa ni jambo sio nzuri, lakini yote tunamwachia Mungu.
Tunashukuru wananchi kwa kutuelezea yale yaliyojiri hapa. Ikabidi tufanye uchunguzi wetu. Baada ya kumaliza uchunguzi wetu, tulipata miili mbili, moja mwanaume, moja mwanamke.
Ile ilifanya hao watu waingie kwa shimo. Hakuna mtu kwa saa hii ako na jabu, lakini ile kitu ilifanya.
Very unfortunate. Now, the sacking of Ezra Chiloba, the former Director General of the Communications Authority of Kenya, is still shrouded in mystery even as public speculation continues to swirl. However, it is now emerging that Chiloba's fate was sealed on the 8th of August this year by a special board audit and risk assurance committee. The team in its report says Chiloba, alongside 9 others, breached the obligations arising under the contract of service, calling for disciplinary action on account of gross misconduct.
A media dispatch from the Communications Authority Board announced Christopher Wambua as the Acting Director General of the Communication Authority of Kenya after former Director General Ezra Chiloba was given marching orders. The suspension was announced 2 years after his appointment to the docket following the retirement of former long-serving DG Francis Wangusi. Chiloba and 9 others were implicated in a report dated August 8th by a special board audit and risk assurance on the CEA staff mortgage scheme. The report says that there were questions on the veracity of the valuation reports for properties presented, a matter which was brought to the attention of the chairperson of the Staff Matters and Administration Committee. The loan book for the scheme as of June 2023 was 662.4 million shillings. The committee queried why the authority had not implemented board resolutions to have a pre-qualified panel of valuers. Against this backdrop, it became apparent that with the scheme beneficiaries using privately sourced valuers, there was a huge risk of collusion and subsequently inflation of property valuation. This led to the suspension of the processing of mortgage applications for 2 months until the comprehensive framework for the management of the mortgage scheme was in place. The report recommended disciplinary action on account of gross misconduct to be taken against the Director General Ezra Chiloba and 9 others over claims of abuse of the authority's mortgage scheme. The findings put the management on the spot for failing to put in place a comprehensive policy manual to guide the administration of CEA staff mortgage scheme. The audit further brought to light that staff mortgage was approved and granted without consideration of the contract term or term of services, thus leading to a loan default amounting to 28.9 million shillings.
Quite the speculation there I saw somewhere in one of the media houses. Now, instead of being Chilobe, it's Chilo Obai. Well, former Communications Authority of Kenya, Director General Ezra Chiloba is a man in the eye of a storm. Now, Chiloba is finding himself in familiar waters as he left the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in a similar fashion. And just like at the IEBC, where he was accused of committing irregularities in the procurement during the 2017 general elections, Chiloba is accused of a raft of issues, including mismanaging 662 million staff mortgage scheme at the Communication Authority, leading to his immediate suspension. Abdiaziz Hashim reports.
His heart throb owing to the presentation of the election results in 2017, earning him the nickname Chilo Babe. Chiloba finds himself yet again in the eye of a storm, less than 5 years after his disgraced exit from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) as its chief executive officer. 2 years after finding a new perching tree, the centre can no longer hold.
Critical phases here. Thank you very much, and I want to declare this event officially open.
The soft-spoken man has been suspended as the CEO of the Communication Authority of Kenya after its board, led by Chairperson Mary Mungai, accused him of mismanaging a 662 million staff mortgage scheme at the authority, led to his immediate suspension. During his short-lived tenure at the helm of the Communication Authority, Chiloba pushed for the registration of all SIM cards, a move that sparked mixed reactions in the country.
We've been working with operators, but largely issuing directives to them to ensure that subscribers are properly registered for them to be able to access communication services.
Recently, Chiloba was the subject of public controversy after admonishing 6 television stations in the country for providing live coverage to the anti-government protest led by Azimio la Umoja coalition, threatening to revoke their licenses.
Media influences public perceptions in profound ways. This is a huge obligation that must be discharged with diligence for the greater good of our country.
Is Chiloba's possible exit from the Communication Authority a calculated political move, or is he just a victim of fate?
The timing of it all, I think there's a bit of politics in it, in terms of exactly his relationship with the previous government. But again, above all, I don't think it would be unfair for me to conclude that he was being shown the door because he was actively in the previous government. Politicians will always say that when you want to defend someone or you want to point out the reason as to why someone has been exited.
Apparently, he used a junior officer to approve it. It's him who was taking the facility, and it's a junior officer. He did not subject it to a higher authority to review and everything around that. So there is that. But then there is the political side of it. Even though it's important for us to say this, just because you have got something running after you, we should not then treat you like an egg when you make the next mistake. So it could be a mix-up of so many things. But unfortunately for him, he has got the IBC tag. We know that IBC has not been good for those who got to the apex. I think only Chebukati has come out to enjoy his retirement. Any other person who's come from IBC on retirement, it's either been hounded out and no one takes you in, which is a sad thing.
Chiloba has 2 years remaining on his contract, having been appointed in September 2021 for a 4-year renewable term.
We'll be keeping tabs on those developments there as Wambua takes that position at the helm of the Communication Authority. Now, President William Ruto has called on the international community to mobilize and direct resources towards addressing impediments to sustainable development goals. The president says aligning global capital with sustainable development goals is crucial for climate positive growth.
President Ruto noted that many countries, especially in Africa, have been unable to implement SDG due to hindrances such as debt, inflation, climate shocks, and conflicts.
Data indicates that many countries are not making progress in the implementation of SDGs. The combination of multiple crises, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, extreme weather events, conflicts, and inflation, has disrupted economies, leading to food and energy insecurity and impacting health and the cost of living.
The president made the remarks when he co-chaired the United Nations General Assembly Sustainable Development Goals Dialogue on applying science and technology innovation and data for transformative action alongside Slovenia President Nataša Pirc-Musar.
The time has come for the international community to mobilize adequate resources for common global finance mechanisms accessible to all, serving the global public good and unlocking the necessary private capital for research and development. For Africa in particular, such investment is urgently needed for evidence-based sustainable development and climate-positive growth.
Later, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, Ruto held talks with the president of Albania, Bajram Begaj, who expressed his country's interest in opening an embassy in Kenya. The president also met Slovakia President Zuzana Kaptuvo, who committed to supporting Kenya's e-mobility initiatives using the advanced e-battery technologies. They also agreed to partner to enhance Kenya's fertilizer production and cybersecurity capacity.
Well, international forums are going to be happening as we prepare for COP28 that is scheduled for at the end of this year. And after having a successful Africa Climate Summit here in Nairobi, dubbed the Nairobi Declaration, we're expecting to see Africa speak in one voice. It seems that the president is also taking that particular conversation at the ongoing UNGA. Now, to matters business, crypto traders are calling for a review of the digital asset tax barely a month into its implementation, arguing that the 3% tax on the value of the digital asset being transferred or exchanged instead of the profits is punitive and threatens the nascent sector. Alan Kaikai, Director Legal at Blockchain Association of Kenya, says coupled to the lack of regulation, this may hinder growth of services associated with the blockchain and crypto by crippling innovation. 1st September saw the government implement the digital asset tax that must be paid on earnings obtained from the transfer or trade of digital assets at a rate of 3%. Barely a month in, stakeholders maintain it is eroding gains in the fast-paced fintech sector.
And that, coupled up with the 5-day remittance window, just makes it very impossible for a lot of guys to operate.
I think there's, as you pointed out, it's a new age. It's a different asset class altogether. It allows for a store of value, a means of exchange, and a means of earning. And I think providing an additional access to a different market would only boost circulation.
Further, they argue that though mandated to regulate crypto, the Capital Markets Authority's sandbox is yet to fully onboard cryptos. The global market capitalization for crypto assets stands at $1.7 trillion, according to Statsia, which is more than 50 times the total market capitalization for all East African bourses combined, which stood at $30.05 billion in the last quarter.
The sandbox to date has never onboarded any crypto-facing project. So the projects that have gone through the sandbox are other fintechs and crowdfunding projects, but we've not seen a crypto exchange, whether centralized or decentralized, or a P2P platform, or any form of platform that directly interacts with NFTs or cryptocurrencies in the sandbox.
CMA has, however, raised caution that crypto assets are not yet entirely safe for investors because they are highly volatile and susceptible to hacking.
After the WorldCoin hearings was that they should deliberately create a framework for onboarding digital assets and crypto technologies in addition to other novel technologies.
The government plans to review the Coffee Bill 2019 to allow multiple licensing of coffee firms. Crops Principal Secretary Harsama Kello says the bill will be reviewed after millers and agents complained that they risk losing up to 200 billion shillings in missed revenue and investments.
The Coffee Bill 2019 underwent through the third reading at the National Assembly. The bill, among other things, calls for single licensing of coffee farms in a bid to reduce coffee sales in trading. The government now says it is ready to make amendments into the bill to allow farms have multiple licenses.
The regulations of 2019, a person cannot be a miller, cannot be a buyer, and cannot be a marketer at the same time. So that is the regulation of 2019, clause 11, which does not allow millers to be value chain actors I've just mentioned. All right? So we are going to solve those problems.
If the amendments are adopted, the Coffee Bill Directorate can issue a single farm with milling, marketing and buying licenses separately.
Coffee is going down because the investors in the industry are not given freedom, free hand to develop their own resources.
The millers say they have already set up subsidiary farms for each license, and single licensing will see them lose up to 200 billion shillings and retrench over 18,000 workers.
People own the commercial millers, the estates that they are managing. The owners have invested close to $200 billion. In this case, you can't just wake up one morning, you deny these people licenses, and they have coffee on the farms. What are they supposed to do?
I am the one who is financing the farmer, and you want to control the money. How do I get my money? And you are saying that we are going to send all this money to the farmer, which we agree. But will the farmer pay me?
The millers want the Agriculture and Food Authority to issue them with temporary permits to mill 20,000 bags of coffee that are yet to be processed due to the licensing stalemate.
The millers are holding several bags of coffee belonging to the farmers, not yet milled. So we have listened to them and definitely will make a decision on those problems.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua last month promised farmers a 2 billion shillings kitty to compensate them for any unmilled coffee caused by the licensing standoff.
To sports, where Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba awarded the National Rugby Sevens team $3 million following their qualification to the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. Kenya qualified for the Games after trouncing South Africa 17-12 in the final played over the weekend in Harare, Zimbabwe.
In the just concluded event, Shujaa won all their matches in Harare, Zimbabwe, beating Namibia 51-0, Burkina Faso 26-0, Zimbabwe 35-10, and South Africa 17-12 to signify a step in the right direction in the rebuilding process following the team's relegation from the Elite World Rugby Series. Speaking in the event, Sports CS Ababu Namwamba stated that the government will invest in a high-performance training facilities to put the players in an environment that gives the best opportunity to compete with the best globally.
They say to be the best, you must beat the best. There's no way you're going to be the best if you don't beat the best. And so, you are here as the best because you have beaten the best.
Sports PS engineer Peter Toom added that the ministry is committed to facilitating sportsmen and women to create a conducive environment to better prepare for the next year's Olympics.
You tell me that you are watching the game as I played. Sometimes I get embarrassed. You know, say for athletics myself, I don't watch any other game. Even if you dragged me to go and watch football, you would most likely find me yawning and looking at my phone. But when it comes to athletics, because that is the only thing I know. So courtesy of you, Waziri, I'm also beginning to enjoy sporting activities like that.
The CS presented the Shujaa team with the ministry's support of 3 million Kenya shillings as a reward for qualifying for Paris Olympics. Shujaa is the second team from Kenya to qualify for the Paris Olympics 2024, with Kenya Queens Malkia Strikers being the first to secure the ticket.
Now that's a win, and we celebrate that, and we wish all the best to our national women's soccer team, Harambee Starlets, that jetted out of the country for Cameroon ahead of the upcoming two-leg 2024 Women Africa Cup of Nations qualifier match, which will be played on Friday in Douala. Now the team will be jetting back home on Sunday for their second leg match on Tuesday next week.
Starlets tactician Bedlin Ademba named 23 players as part of traveling team for 2024 Women Africa Cup of Nations against Cameroon, which is set to be played on Friday this week at Douala, Cameroon. This squad features a blend of informed local-based players and experienced foreign-based players. Noteworthy addition to the squad is Esia Kinda, who makes a return to the national team for the first time since 2018. Should Harambee Starlets emerge as aggregate winners on the two-legged qualifiers, they will face either Gabon or Botswana in the second round, scheduled between 27 November and December 5th, 2023. The victor of second round will secure automatic qualification for 2024 Africa Women's Cup of Nations due in Morocco. The team will jet back home on Sunday for their second leg match on Tuesday next week.
Well, that puts a cap on Matters News this morning. We invite you to peruse our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, and also for a recap of the bulletin is already on YouTube on KBC Channel 1 live stream. I'm Regina Manyara. I leave in the able hands of my colleagues, that is Vivian and Victor, for the rest of the programming. Have a fantastic day ahead.
These are the moments we live for every Friday as we catch up with the world of football.
Manchester City go in front.
With your favorite stars in rivalries like no other that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Learn a few tricks that keep you ahead of the game and spice it all with unforgettable moments on Dunda Dunda. On Saturday, you're in for another treat as we rock your weekend with all sporting disciplines, bringing you insights on what's happening behind the scenes as we share players and athlete stories, preparations, and celebrate their achievements.
Charging to the line. Is it going to be a world record? Yes, it is. She smashed it.
Whatever angle you look at, we've got you covered. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Who is this?
Welcome back. It's now 5 minutes past 7 a.m. Good morning. Welcome back to the program. Today being the Wednesday, it is the day for the Viewpoint, where we take a look at everything happening across our country in a 360-degree angle. So stay with us. My guest will be in studio shortly, but already I have Wilson Sosion, who is a former NAT Secretary General. He calls himself CS.
And CS.
CS.
Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage.
Good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. And good morning, our viewers.
Karibu sana. I usually ask this question, that how is Kenya to this end?
Yeah, Kenya is good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very progressive country.
Right.
It's an open democracy.
Mm.
It's a hub of economic activities within within the region.
Yes.
Is a global hub also. It's a country with a lot of global interest.
Yeah.
And so there are lots of activities. Yeah.
Okay. We'll get more into that. But right about now, the way we usually do it, a quick look at the traffic situation before you leave your house. And I also promised to do Bomet, Bolim. So I have to do Bomet as well, lest I be blocked on my way to the village, that I don't take a look at what Bomet has. What a Bomet, I will take care of you. Okay, first of all, let's come back to Nairobi.
Western.
Sorry?
Bomet is the route to Western
Yes,
Kenya.
yes,
the shortest route.
So without going through Bomet, I don't think we can ever make it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay. The traffic situation in Nairobi, this is a situation as we speak. Thika Road, always a mess. I really don't know what can be done as far as this highway is concerned. It was a menace years ago, but after the infrastructure, that mess in between Kenya Utalii Hotel sometimes goes back up to KCA or Outer Ring Road, flowing down to Pangani, Muthaiga Square down there, heading to Pangani Shopping Center. This stretch is always a mess, and it spills over to the Kiambu Road, that is along the Kiambu Road heading to Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Something has to happen here, whether an expansion needs to be done or some sense of discipline from the motorist should be taken care of. That is as far as that is concerned. What about Limuru Road? Limuru Road, just around Parklands, that's where the problem is, around Aga Khan. The City Park market thereabouts, that's where the problem is, but as you come towards Forest Road, everything moving fine. If you're coming from the western side of the city, that is all the way from Gitaru, coming to Kangemi, Mountain View, coming down to Westlands roundabout, past Museum, and ultimately into the CBD, flowing pretty well. So if you're coming all that side, you have a moment to come to work. Mombasa Road, good morning. So far, this is how it looks like. Moving pretty fine. The green sign, meaning it's flowing very well. Because what Mombasa Road? You have an option, either use the expressway or the normal route that we are used to. So that is how this traffic situation along Mombasa Road. And finally, I'm told that we have to look at Jogo Road. Very good. It's Lanto Massive. Mkwaje, Jogo Road, starting from around Makadara, that's where the problem is. But before that, if you are just outbound towards Donholm, today iko sawa. So unless you want to use the Outer Ring Road, a bit of some traffic around Donholm, Total thereabout, moving towards the North Airport Road. So far, so good. Watu Embakasi, there's a problem here. As you come towards this diversion and that interchange there, heading towards Outer Ring, the Embakasi North Airport Road, shida iko hapo. But you have to be patient. Very well. Okay, let's cross over to Mombasa. Good morning. Mombasa, the problem started around Kongowea. That is Mariakani Market there, Kongowea Market. The red light is always a problem. That is Kengeleni. But after that, coming all the way to New Nyali Bridge, moving pretty fine. What about those people coming from those sides of Makupa, coming to the new Makupa Bridge? So far, so good. Coming into the CBD, what Mombasa, you'll be surprised that things will start to move at around 9 or 10. I've never understood. Likoni Ferry Channel, so far so good. So far so good. Good morning, Mombasa. All right, and finally, Kisumu City, this is the situation. Today, let me start with the lake, okay? This is how the lakes look like. Have you taken a boat ride in the lake, Mr. Sosion? In Kisumu?
In Kisumu, yes.
Yes.
And
the experience?
That was long ago.
So you need to experience.
It should have been around 1999. Yeah.
Okay. Right now, that's when we still had the hyacinth, the seaweed.
Yeah,
right now, it's been taken care of, it's clear. So you can have a quick motorboat ride, a motorboat ride in Lake Victoria. So it looks good. That's as far as that's concerned. All right, Watu wa Kisumu, Wayawereuru. That is as far as that's concerned in terms of traffic. Let me come back and take a look at what we have on the front page of our local dailies. Let me start with Daily Nation. On the front page of the Daily Nation, 4 days of hell. That is what is there. 4 days of hell. It's all about former CS, that is Joseph Olelenku. This is in regards to the Westgate Mall attack, which happened 10 years ago. And for Olelenku, it was a baptism of fire as the Westgate raid made him the good man in the wrong job, quote unquote. Joseph Olelenku, a career hotelier, had been a surprise pick for Interior Security CS for newly elected President Uhuru Kenyatta. He was up to the task, he said, and promised to deliver on his mandate. But the tragic events of September 21st, 2013, that left 67 people dead, would change everything. And when it all started at around midday on that fateful Saturday, the minister had no idea of what was about to happen. But let me ask you this, Ms. Osion, this probably Kenya has really grown in terms of our preparedness, in terms of terrorism, because these are some of the things that we were not for, apart from the 1998 bomb attack at the embassy. Then at some point we had some reprieve, some silence, and then years later we had some sense of, terrorism attack. But we would give it to ourselves that we have grown of age to this far.
I think the establishment of anti-police terrorist unit has strengthened the capacity of surveillance and monitoring and early detection of terrorist activities. And Kenyan security system is credited to be one of the best in the world, the most professional. I think there are good things that really we must speak about in this country. Our security system. We've got one of the most professional military outfits in the world, and you saw what they did in Somalia. They were chided by our neighbors who have been in civil wars that the Kenyan military is only very good in parades, but it's not good at war. And where our neighbors had failed in Somalia, where Uganda had failed, Ethiopia had failed, and the rest, the Kenya army succeeded very tremendously in Somalia. But after the August 7th and subsequently, it was found that it was important that the terrorist cells in Somalia should be dealt with and could be dealt with by the Kenya army, where even the US could not succeed in doing it. But you've seen what the Kenya army has done. We've got the best story in dealing with terrorism in the Horn of Africa, and Kenya army doing it. Other than Kenya army, our police security system and our intelligence is credited to be one of the best in the world. And equipping it and giving it the necessary infrastructure to execute their mandate has made this Kenya completely safe from terrorist attacks, other than what we saw in Duji's supermarket and others who were in Kikambala in the coast. That was an Israeli-run hotel in Mombasa. Those isolated pockets of trying to target so that we can be embarrassed internationally, I think we have managed. Kenya is now a very safe destination. It's a safe country for tourists, and I think it's out of the classification of destination that some countries have been giving advisories to their visitors, to their citizens not to visit. So Kenya is very safe. Every part of Kenya is safe. Tourism is robust, and our hotels are full, and our country is generally completely hospitable to our visitors, and that is what we need. We must secure our borders and secure our country.
Yeah. When you look at the trajectory in terms of growth, way back, the terrorist attack in 1998, we had sporadic attacks, the Lamu. But when Kenya Defense Forces got their foot in Somalia, now years on end, we've seen some huge space of calm return. And in fact, Somalia can now do business freely with other countries, much as there's that sense of stability slowly, because that is not something they're used to. But what would you make in terms of our policy, in terms of foreign policy as a country compared to other countries, in terms of creation of peace, creation of unity, globally or even regionally?
The truth is we are a regional superpower. That's a fact. in terms of capacity, in many areas, in many areas in terms of development, but in terms of security, we've been the most stable democracy since independence for a long time. Unlike our neighbors who have gone through very serious civil wars, governments have been brought down. But for us, we have enjoyed relative stability, and this is a country where democracy has been allowed to thrive over time. And the democratic process has created a democratic government with a vibrant economy that is balanced. And investors wanting to invest in South Sudan, DR Congo, and anywhere else will come and put their money and pitch tent here in Nairobi before moving to the rest of the country. And therefore, I agree with what the president said, that we need to ensure that there is peace in all our countries within the neighborhood and within the Horn of Africa. And that even the generals in Sudan should go back to the barrack and leave the country to the civilians. If we succeeded where none could succeed in Somalia, because Somalia was the cell of terrorism. The terrorism activities that we were witnessing
for almost the entire continent.
The Somalia was the cell of terrorism, but you see, courtesy of Kenya Army, now Somalia, even as a state, is normalizing. We are in DR Congo, the Kenya Army, together with the East African countries, military mobilization to bring peace in DR Congo, because DR Congo is a new member of the East African community. It cannot participate in the economic and political and integration affairs if it is in the state of the civil war. So I think we begin first as Kenya to assist our countries within the region to stabilize. We hosted South Sudan for a long time, the generals. The peace talk, the comprehensive peace agreement was signed in Naivasha and presided over by one Kenyan, Major General Sumbeyo. And now South Sudan is stable, it's in peace. And very often when there are conflicts, you can see the eminent leadership of Kenya will always step in.
Most of the peace talks are actually held here in Nairobi.
Yeah, the peace talks are held in Nairobi. Nairobi is the Geneva of East Africa. And you've seen the president has profiled Kenya as such, even globally. If our participation in helping Haiti, an island in the Caribbean, where we have our brothers, the president's commitment to deploy and to avail the Kenyan police to assist in training and operationalizing the police system in Haiti, you saw was praised by Joe Biden yesterday while delivering his speech at the United Nations General Assembly. So really, we are recognized globally, and Joe Biden urged the United Nations Security Council to support Kenya in what it is doing in Haiti. So we must think beyond the continent and within the continent. And you see, when you are talking about Africa continental free trade area and removing the boundary barriers within Africa, it must take cognizance of security situations. We must secure the continent. We cannot open borders without securing the continent. And after securing the continent, the free movement of goods and people, and of course, removal of barriers to trade like visas, I think is going to take us a notch higher. We should join other jurisdictions like Europe, where they've established one common EU and is a common market with a common currency. There are countries what we call the Schengen countries, that is Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Switzerland. You get one common visa and one entry port, and you move freely within those jurisdictions.
Yeah.
I think in Africa, our real liberation is at the economic front, where we must remove the visas, the borders, and our attachment to our colonial masters, the Francophone countries, getting enslaved to the French, Anglophone to the British, and we must break this and integrate the continent of Africa. And probably we may eventually need to develop a language, a local language that unites Africa. I was surprised when Congo, you cannot communicate to Congolese in English. It's a French-speaking country. But I found it easy communicating with the teachers of DR Congo and Cameroon in Kiswahili.
Yes.
And it's a very exciting thing. South Africa is now beginning to mainstream the teaching of Kiswahili. So Kiswahili might end up being the lingua franca of Africa. Right. And we open Africa.
It goes back to the bad blood between them and their colonizers. All right. That's very good. That's very good. Going back to the history. Still on the front page of the Daily Nation. Azimio split. That's a big question here. Karua Kioni front new political outfit. It's called Kamwene Leadership Forum. It says that NA Kenya Party leader Martha Karua and Jubilee Party's Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni yesterday fronted a new political movement, lending some credence to political difference within the opposition dubbed Kamwene Leadership Forum. Now, the new formation to champion the interest of Mount Kenya region started gaining traction after Azimio failed to name a member from the populous region to the National Dialogue Committee. Now, the story continues on page 5, and Karua is quoted as saying that the Kamwene Leadership Forum, a group of people who are not in the Kenya Kwanza, neither are they in Azimio, but are pushing the interest of the mountain rather. So that is people who are neither in Azimio nor in Kenya Kwanza. They stay there somewhere there in the middle. Kamwene Leadership Forum. So is it going to bring a split in Azimio, or are they, what is this all about? And some people will say that Karua and Kioni they're now trying to front a new political outfit. What do you make of this?
Well, those are disparate actions by the Mount Kenya Azimio wing. Yeah, politically speaking, the mountain is the heartbeat of Kenya Kwanza government. That's a fact. And by statistics and data, the mountain delivered 47% of the votes of Kenya Kwanza. And in the language of shareholding, major shareholders of government. That's a fact for sure. Using quote unquote the shareholding. So really, Karua and Kioni to try and market a non-existent and inconsequential new outfit because they are frustrated within the Azimio outfit, which never gained any footing in the mountain. It never sold. The mountain remains intact and consolidated within Kenya Kwanza because Kenya Kwanza, the mountain, are the major shareholders in Kenya Kwanza. And it would be foolhardy to walk away from where you control and begin nurturing and nursing inconsequential outfits and arrangement. So to me, that is inconsequential. It's only an indicator that Azimio is collapsing. It was mechanically brought together with a selfish agenda by those who have held the economy and placed it under the capture for a long time. Now that the economy is out of their hands, so it is messed up with huge debts and many things that cannot balance. And the economy is going back to the people at the bottom. And I don't think the people at the mountain will be foolish enough to entertain this kind of outfit that is trying to metamorphose itself out of Azimio to try and gain some attraction and relevance in the mountain. The mountain is decided, and is decided beyond the next 10 years, and that is the democratic right. And I think the mountain is on a mission, and they made history in this election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the number of people who did not vote even in the mountain, perhaps they still need the total number of registered voters compared to the number of voters. 8 million voters did not vote in the last general election. Now, a chunk of that is in Mount Kenya. Looking into that. But then, this is just but an outfit of a number of people who are coming on board who are neither in Azimio or in Kenya Kwanza. They're in the middle.
When you get down, you look at the
because
voter
Karua says
apathy.
that they are still in Azimio.
If you look at the voter apathy,
right.
The voter apathy, the voter turnout was projected at the mountain. The pessimists projected that the voter turnout would be very low. But the voter turnout was significantly very high. And the mountain is politically active for a long time. There will never be a general election where they will not participate in significant numbers. And even if we compare with the heartbeat of Azimio, which is Nyanza, the voter turnout in Nyanza was around, in Lower Nyanza was around 70 to 74. The apathy was even higher because of undemocratic process of handing over direct nominations to members of parliament. So really, if we talk about voter apathy and voter turnout, the Rift Valley and the mountain, the voter turnout was significantly high, and it will remain as such. So the new arrangement that is being formed by Kioni and Mother Karua, Kioni and Mother Karua should bite the bullet like the Jubilee members of parliament from the mountain, led by Sabina Chege, Kanini Kega, and the rest of the group. They smell the coffee early enough and shipped to Kenya Kwanza, complete with the identity as Jubilee, and nobody's going to touch them. They are existing with that identity, but they are working within the framework of Kenya Kwanza. That is what Kioni and Karua should be able to do.
Let's discuss that more when you come back. Kindly, let's just pay some bills very quickly. We'll be right back. Godfrey Ruku, Member of Parliament, Bere North, is already in studio, so we are starting that discussion shortly after this. Please stay with us.
Vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth, uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent. Gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC sasa wamekama up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wanaoffer mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea Studio Mashinani huko Comarox, Langata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through Studio Mashinani. KBC Channel 1 magazine programs strive to disseminate news and information.
Welcome to Happening in the World of Entertainment
and achievements of individuals navigating through life.
Be part of the intelligent conversation. Papa KBC Channel 1.
Related to the interest of Kenyan public on various subjects of national importance.
Basi karibu tujifunze.
Keeping you up to date with the latest tech news,
challenges and remarkable stories of individuals with disabilities.
And you have a say.
Our magazine programs empower communities with words for conversations and a common language to approach the world.
For your infotainment needs, we have a great range of programs.
Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. We're still talking about matters politics and taking a look at what we have generally in 360. Mheshimiwa Ruku, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Mbeere North, how is the constituency doing?
Mbeere North is good. We are trying all the best to ensure we serve the people.
Yes.
With diligence, with honesty, with humility, very important. And also situations which are very difficult, we have to empathize with the people, because we have quite a number of difficult situations which you may not be able to intervene to help as a leader, but one of the great leaders said, a leader is a trainer of hope, Napoleon. And therefore we have to continuously give people hope where we are not able to offer concrete solutions. But generally, we have to continue serving people. And me, as a member of parliament from Mbeere North, I'm committed in serving the people of Mbeere North with humility, with commitment, with dedication, and always to give hope that the lives of the people of Mbeere North will be much better than they are. The life is at the moment.
You had a 1-month recess. Did you also have a recess, or for you, kazi kama kawaida?
It's a lot of engagement and work during the recess. The only difference is that we don't go to the house. But generally, there is a lot of committee work. There is a lot of planning involved in, for instance, when it comes to implementation of CDF project, requires a lot of planning to be undertaken. So generally, it's a lot of work, whether we are in session or not. That is what has been happening. Too much committee work. For instance, we are investigating the work of OneCoin activities in Kenya, or what we call the tools of humanity. It's a lot of work to discuss those activities with different agencies, government agencies. So too much work. But we thank Kenyans for giving us this opportunity. And we have to fulfill our mandate given by the people as per the Constitution, and of course ensuring the values which are enshrined in our Constitution, Article 10, we adhere to the national values of leadership. So we are committed in ensuring we are going to move this nation forward in the right direction in our small ways of contribution.
All right. I'll come back to that. We took a look at the front page of the Daily Nation. I'll get back to that shortly. But let me take you through the front page of the Standard newspaper. Why Chiloba was shown the door. Why Chiloba was shown the door. The story says that Communications Authority of Kenya boss Ezra Chiloba thrown out of after he was sucked into a multi-million shillings staff mortgage scandal exposed in a board audit, which has also sucked in Secretary to the Cabinet Mercy Wanjau during her time as CA Acting Director General. That is the story on page 6 and page 7, why Chiloba was shown the door. I beg your pardon. Audit blames suspended CA boss of overvaluation of property worth by around 64.47%, resulting in a mortgage of 25 million shillings instead of approved 16,720,000. Ezra Chiloba accused of clearing exiting staff without reviewing their mortgages, causing the authority a financial exposure of 28.8 million shillings. That is the front page of the Standard newspaper. Again, Alarm as July's money supply fails by 419 billion shillings. We discussed that here. It's because of liquidity, lack of money in the pocket, and that in circulation in the banks. As far as that is concerned, so let's take a look at that story, why Chiloba was shown the door. You can take a look at that story on page 6 and page 7. But Mheshimiwa Ruku, let me just get back to you in for the sake of fairness. 4 days of hell. This is in 2010, marking 10 years since the Westgate Mall attack. Probably, what can I just remember? After that, we've discussed that with Sosion and our security system. So we have to get to ourselves that we've grown the leaps and bounds to where we are today. 10 years later, Westgate attack.
Terrorism is a threat it's a crime against humanity.
Yes.
It's a crime against humanity, which every nation in the world has a jurisdiction on such kind of crimes, as far as international law is concerned. And it's a real threat to any nation in the world. And we thank our security apparatus or our security forces who are taking care of internal and external security of this nation for the work they are doing. And it doesn't mean that because we have not had a major terrorist attack for a number of years now, that there are no attempts. Attempts are there every single day. It's only that we have proper, very hard-working security forces which are ensuring that we have a safe nation. We are not getting these kind of attacks as we used to get in the previous years. So any crime against humanity is a crime which should be condemned by any person. You don't need to be a leader to condemn such kind of crime. And we hope that it will never happen, and we encourage our security forces to continue upping up their game to ensure Kenyans are safe, all corners of this country, from all borders, whether it is in Mandera or in Ramu or in Nairobi or in Kisumu, wherever it is. They have to continue serving Kenyans with dedication, serving the nation with dedication and commitment. And we surely thank for their service.
Right.
Because without them, these grenade attacks or terrorism attack will be everywhere. Because attempts are real. It is, these terrorists are planning every single day, or now they can attack this country. And not only this country, many countries in the world. So we have to continue supporting our security forces.
What does this really point to our foreign policy? From the previous regimes to the current one, the president right now is in New York. What does that really mean to our foreign policy as a country?
The foreign policy of this nation has not changed much from the time of the Kenyatta, the Mzee, to Moi, to Kibaki, to Uhuru, to the current president. Actually, some of us, as members of parliament, we are in support of changing the foreign policy of this country. But foreign policy is not, you don't wake up tomorrow and you change.
Yes.
We more or less say traditional customs of a nation. And traditional customs of a nation, they bring up a foreign policy. The way the nations have interacted within the community of nations or at the diplomatic levels. So the foreign policy of this country has not changed much, and I don't think it's going to change a lot, though personally I advocate more activities of the military. Our Kenyan military should be more active within the region. And probably within the region and in Africa. And we should involve military in the economic plan of the nation, because most of the nations which have developed, probably over 80%, they have incorporated military as in part of their economic plan. it is a risky thing, but also it's something which can be managed properly. So I don't see foreign policy of this nation changing. Kenya has very good cordial relation with most of the nations, United States of America, with the UK, with most of the European nations. We saw yesterday a president that was meeting with the president of Ukraine, and you know what is happening in Ukraine. The other day, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Russia was here in State House, and bilateral discussions with Russia. And yesterday, the president was in a meeting with the president of Ukraine. So it tells you that Kenya does not interfere with internal affairs of any nation in the world. And Kenya respects the statehood or sovereignty of any nation out there. And that's why Kenya has resisted all attempt or all urge, I don't know what I may call it, persuasion to get more involved, let's say, in Somalia, get more involved in DRC, get more involved in South Sudan.
What Mr. said here.
It has resisted. It has infested it has infested in peace talks or peacekeeping in Congo, but it doesn't interfere with internal politics or internal affairs of Democratic Republic of Congo. Kenya has hosted many South Sudanese here, leaders, and at the moment we have huge population. It has invested in peace talks of South Sudan, but it has never gotten into affairs of running the government or affairs of South Sudan. So that is a foreign policy we have as a nation, which respects the internal affairs of other nations, sovereignty of any country, which some of us think we should be a bit skewed, we should be a bit tilted, but we have not been given that opportunity by the people of the Republic to say, this is the way. But for now, Kenya respects the sovereignty of any nation.
Very well. Finally, front page of the Star newspaper is quite different. 50 years in jail for gays and lesbians. There's a bill. That's the anti-gay bill, which the law criminalizes change of sex or procedures intended to change a gender. The owners of premises where same-sex act happens to pay 2 million shillings fine or 7 years in jail. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper. The story is completely detailed there for you on page 4 and page 5. That is a bill that is sponsored by Peter Kaluma, Member of Parliament of Homa Bay Town, which stipulates 50 years in jail for gays and lesbians. That is a bill. There you have it. Uganda has completely enacted this, Mr. Sion, and is in action.
No, I think drawing from our role and our philosophy as a country in the international community, there are things we must be extremely cautious about. Criminalizing, using our laws, the LGBTQ community may not help at all. What we need to do is to strengthen our ethics, strengthen our culture. That is all we need to do. We've been reviewing our education to incorporate the 21st century skills, that is competencies and skills and value-based education. Once we strengthen value-based education, we'll not need to waste time creating laws to criminalize non-issues. It's giving prominence for nothing. Because how many LGBTQs do we have in the country? Are there better ways of dealing with them rather than criminalizing? Because we've had cases of sodomy and all that, and it's partly covered by our laws. I don't think it's right for us to jump into the fray of unnecessary global debate on and trying to create stringent laws. It's not the best route. Let us strengthen our culture and ethics and values through our education, through religion, and through our various practices, and we'll not need to talk about that. If you want to promote such vices, then criminalize them.
Yeah.
That is how to promote. So really, we must have better ways of handling it as a country, and know that we are a country that believes in the supremacy of God, and so any other sex orientation are not welcome. If we simply make statements clear as that and strengthen our values, then we'll not have much of that.
Okay.
But I don't think, to me, it's not wise to go the route of criminalizing what is even nothing.
Okay. We are done with our local papers. Let me take you very quickly to our international stories, what we have on the front page of the BBC. That's where we have it. Russia's evil cannot be trusted. That's according to Zelensky's telling it UN. The world must unite to end Russia's aggression. UN's president tells the UN General Assembly. The president is here actually in New York. Ukraine war, Russian evil, quote unquote, cannot be trusted. Zelensky tells UN. It says that evil cannot be trusted. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has told the UN General Assembly as he urged the world to unite to end Russian aggression against his country. He also accused Russia of weaponizing everything from the food to energy. Russia's full-scale invasion has prompted widespread condemnation. That is what is happening in New York. We'll take a look at that later on. And finally, again on France 24, this is it. Russian abduction of Ukrainian children is genocide. Zelensky tells UN. That is US President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky take center stage at the UN General Assembly on Tuesday to address world leaders on the war in Ukraine. That has divided the global body. Biden has urged world leaders to stand with Kiev against Russian aggression, while also touching on Washington's tense relationship with China. It's important that we are talking about Kenya's relationship with other jurisdictions, and this is no different from what's happening between Russia and other jurisdictions. But when you look at it, the president is here. That sends a very strong signal in as far as maintaining our foreign policy with other nations is also concerned. When you see President William Ruto on that world stage, Kenya has been a member of the UN Security Council for quite some time. And here we are. These countries are also not in good position. Ruku, how can world, for example, how can we have a global kind of unity, but having in mind that we also have our jurisdictions and our borders to keep, and other interests from one country to another? For example, a country can have another interest with another country. For example, with this one, Russia, China, the tense intention with China and Russia. What would you make of that?
I think there is, we can say democracy is one of very expensive method or mode of governance of nations. But if you want to say democracy is expensive, then you can try anarchy, or you can try authoritative, or what you call autocratic kind of leadership. The benefit of democracy, regardless of how expensive it is, vis-a-vis autocratic kind of leadership, the benefit of democracy outweighs any other, regardless of how expensive it is. And this is what we are experiencing in some part of the world. We have seen it in South Korea. In North Korea. We have seen Russia. The main concern of Russia is not about democracy, is not about the human right. Is about unifying the nation, how to maintain Russia as a unit, as one entity, because it's one of very big nations we have in the world. big, fast country, and which has a history of secession, different region forming its own nation.
Yes.
We have seen that with the Crimea, with many other nations which seceded from USSR after the Cold War. So the biggest problem of any leader in Russia is how to ensure the unity of the nation is maintained. And the problem which we are experiencing at the moment is Russia trying to say all its former, what I may say, the nations which were part of the of USSR, we have to go back then, there. Hence the problem they are experiencing at the moment with Ukraine and several other nations like Crimea and others which are also trying to agitate them leaving the Russia as a nation. So if you intertwine all that with the concept of democracy, it becomes a very tricky affair. Unfortunately, these are nations with nuclear weapons. So it's not a nation which you can just threaten in the morning and tell them you have to toe rain. In case of any confrontation, you never know when the end of the nation is likely to touch the nuclear button. And once that happens, this world will change. I
don't want to imagine what will happen.
This world will change.
Yes.
So it's a tricky affair to manage all these interests, all these phases of different conflict or interests we have globally.
Yes.
But having said that, we should all remember, and this has been said by astronauts who have managed to go to the space, that you go to the space and you look back where you have come from. It's a small group. It's a unified thing, and all of us, that is what we depend on. And there's no need of all these kind of push and pull we have among the nations, because this world is for all of us. There should be peace. There should, for the sake of human development, peace must be fair. In the world, and that must be maintained at all costs.
When there is that Russia and Ukraine, instability, Kenya is feeling that pinch to date, years later. So, how would we had the climate summit the other day, and heads of states championed for their own financial autonomy. How can we, as a nation, for example, Kenya, and Africa as a continent, have our own granary, so to speak, that we have our own reserve, that in case of such kind of insurgency, the one we have in Russia and Ukraine, then we don't suffer? Mr. Sosion, from your own experience, can that really happen, that we have our own reserve? The global integration coming on board, yes, but when there's a flare-up, then as a continent, we are safe and sound to continue the journey.
If the dream of Africa continental free trade area comes into fruition, and eventually we have one common currency, it is going to be possible to build an economic superpower within the continent. That means we must have a completely different mind shift in terms of how we look at Africa. And I think that is what the president has been pushing, relaxing of visas with various countries and opening up trade engagement. In that way, we'll be able to do what Europe is doing with their euro currency.
Yes.
And they can assert their political interests also through that particular forum. And I think Africa urgently needs more than ever before. The manufacturing, promoting manufacturing and value addition within the continent of Africa is an urgent thing that we can build our own resources and build our economy. But currently as it is, it's not a switch on and switch off affair that can happen today. Of course, we have got African Development Bank, but of course, it's not extremely independent. Africa still relies on policies of others. And financial borrowing, which of course the president has been arguing, we are made to pay more and we are charged more as a continent. It's something that needs to be applied fairly across board. So for now, there's little that we can do other than to negotiate for good conditions within the global financial system, that is one, and then two, work towards a more robust, vibrant, and united African economy. And it's not very difficult to work on a united African economy. We've had regional economic blocs, ECOWAS, IGAD, and East African Community, SADC, and the rest. It is possible to work on a common
without depending
market
on the big, without depending on the big boys.
Yes, we are free to do that.
Okay,
we are able to do that, and we should be able to do that. But that requires political goodwill. That requires more open, democratic governance within the respective countries. And as been stated by Honorable Rook, we have been, as a country, philosophically, over time, within the category of what we call non-aligned states. We were not aligned to any group, even during the Cold War. And even as has been stated, the president has met Zelensky, and there's a lot about Kenya and Ukraine in terms of agriculture and grains and food security, and even dealing with Russia directly, notwithstanding their own conflicts. Let them live with their conflict. We are not part of it, but we can still do international trade. I think the most urgent thing, even as African leaders attend UNGA, is to think broadly and pragmatically on how to unite Africa. Let us not wait for people from other continents to come and organize Africa. It is us to organize our continent for the best interest of our very own people. Once we have a strong, vibrant African economy, it will be good for all the people of Africa. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
It's almost 8 a.m. Let's take a break. Let's take a break. I beg your pardon. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we're still going to continue that because the president being in New York, this is a very important stage. The first while he's in office. So you also want to take a look at that, his foreign policy, his stand as a president, and what message he's sending to other jurisdictions, even to that global stand, even as we continue with this discussion. That is coming up shortly. Wakili Ombati is also joining us shortly here in studio, so don't go away. Stay with us.
번이 죽었어. 나는 안전한 건가? 내 안전 보장할 수 있어? 걱정 마. 우리 뒤엔 국장님이 있어.
그 코러스 때문에 케이스 제약 주가가 완전 폭등이래. 연일 상한가. 내가 비자금이 있었으면 미리 사놓는 건데 아주 좋아.
작전에 실패했어요.
But Lord knows that I don't want to be lonely tonight. They don't know, and I said they don't know.
She's not here for a night of day. She loves it when the music plays.
All the bridges are burned. There's still not shown no love. It's like you no learn. You have to be a brother's keeper.
And welcome back. It's a minute past 8 a.m. Still continuing our discussion here. Today on The Viewpoint, we just want to take a look at Kenya's foreign relations with other nations. As far as this is concerned, we can also do this. Tuache siasa kidogo. See how we relate with our global brothers and sisters out there. I'm joined by Omwanza Ombati, who is an advocate of the High Court. Over 20 years in the Court of Justice. Must have been a long time for you, Wakili. 20 years plus.
Well, 20 years this year. So it's a long time to be in the courts, but not too long. I think
so you want to continue?
I think I'm in the middle age.
When you said that, Godfrey Ruko will be looking at you, okay, fine. So better not still have some hope for more years to come. Okay. Yeah. We were taking a look at our foreign relations today. Mr. Sosion, you're still on, your mic was on, so I'll give you a minute to finalize on this, as far as this is concerned.
There's something I wanted to add on. What,
okay, go ahead then. Go ahead. Your minute is donated.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Anarchy anywhere is anarchy everywhere. The interdependence of nations is so much such that we cannot ignore any problem or any anarchy happening in any part of the world. May it be in Somalia, may it be in DRC, or may it be in Ukraine or any other part of the world. Because when there is anarchy in a certain corner of the world, it gives room for other people, criminals, to set camp there and plan things which may affect you directly. We saw with the anarchy in Afghanistan and what it contributed in molding Osama bin Laden. We saw anarchy in Libya, we saw anarchy in Iraq and Kuwait and many other nations. So we cannot say that there is anarchy in Lesotho, and because Lesotho is a very small country inside within South Africa, therefore let's just ignore. Anarchy everywhere is, anywhere is anarchy everywhere.
Yes.
That's why it's very important as the nations in Africa, in the coming years, there's no other way but we have to unite as a people of Africa. And the way trends are happening at the moment, if you look at what's happening in Western Africa, West African nations, the kind of coups which are happening at the moment, supported by the people, because they think people have come to realize that France as a nation has been squeezing all the resources of this country and building their nations, but not African nations. This has been happening in most of Africa countries. It is also happening to some extent in our nation. Because where my brother comes from, we have used tracks of tea which is not bringing enough foreign exchange or currency in our economy. We have to find a way of fixing this once and for all.
Yeah.
And it's not only Kenya, but also other African nations which are facing the same problem. The technology, the pace at which the technology is moving is so fast, such that some of the notions which have been held by nations will be killed by technology. And African nation can only, get to the same pace with other nations if, one, we are going to be central as far as matters technology, just the way we have been central. Look at M-Pesa, what it has done in terms of financial inclusion in this country, within the East Africa. So we can have our own local technologies which can thrust the nation into serious development trajectory. The railway network, let's say in Germany, was built in 1902, 1912, those years then. So we cannot be able to compete with some of these nations when it comes to infrastructure, but we can be able to compete in the emerging technologies which are seriously bringing in income to the nation, but also we have to stimulate the way we do our things as a nation, as African nations, in making everything to be efficient, effective, And it can be done in a short period of time.
Yeah.
It happened in Singapore, it happened in other nations, in Asian, what we call Asian tigers. It can also happen in our African nation. And I can tell you, that's the direction of which Africa
are we
is
so much
taking.
aware of some of these successes as a nation? We talked about Kenya exports brains almost every quarterly. You know, doctors, teachers, engineers, we export brains. But then, are we in that space to say that we have recognized ourselves as a nation, that much as the president is out there marketing this country, we as a people, are we also aware of the gains that we are making as individuals? Let me just get your voice on this as far as this Wakili is also concerned. Karibu.
Thank you. I think Kenyans have done very well outside. Right
the
now,
ambassador now being the president out there selling us, you know?
Yes.
Yes.
I think our biggest forex exchange earner right now is our brothers who are out in the diaspora. So I think it's a good thing to have strong relations, particularly between ourselves and what the government is doing in terms of creating the environment for our brothers in the diaspora to be able to thrive and also connect with Kenyans here. So I suppose that as time goes by, maybe the biggest term of Kenyans who work will be not even in Kenya; they'll be out there. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Sosion, there's that bit of President William Ruto came into office and immediately he hit the ground running, meeting different presidents of different jurisdictions. What that really show to other countries and even to us as a nation that yes, this is a new regime, but our foreign policy, as Mheshimiwa Ruto also said, that it has not changed, but we need to improve it moving forward. How does that really play out in the global arena?
Yeah, I think what the president is trying to foster is to prove that we cannot exist alone in isolation. We can't succeed alone. We must exist in cooperation with other jurisdictions, and we must define our points of engagement, honestly and candidly. And I think the president has been very candid to the multilateral donors and those who control the economy about the plea of our continent. Take, for example, the single agenda of climate action. And he has made a very strong case. And the general agreement that Africa need to be funded, developing economies need to be funded, the nanometers of carbon needs to be compensated by those emitting. Because if the carbon agreement trade, if we don't watch out, it's a license for the emitters to continue emitting, and those not emitting will continue suffering. There must be a balance of justice in the global economy. But by and large, within our continent of Africa, there is a strong emerging thinking. When you look at the Francophone countries getting some form of renaissance and realizing that they're losing most of their resources, exporting raw material and their goods to out of their countries, and they're getting no value for it. It is a critical thinking within the continent of Africa that we must engage in value addition of our raw materials. And if we begin, for example, in Kenya, we cannot export raw tea. We can add value to our raw tea and have our farmers benefiting more from their tea. The same case with other raw materials across Africa. But that requires leadership and organized government and commitment to do it, which I think the president has displayed that urgency and intention to bring a more focused leadership, to look at the new Africa, new cooperation, and even global cooperation, that we can partner with everyone in the world for the good of humanity, and with serious organizing of our people. And the biggest barrier is undemocratic entities. where we have coups, where we have civil wars, it becomes difficult to move.
And it destabilizes.
It destabilizes the entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so we need a more organized democratic Africa and a more integrated economy before we even get out to the rest of our colleagues in the global community. And I think that is the leadership that the president is trying to push across. If you look at his visit to the US and the engagement with the technology owners and bringing that technology to Kenya. It is not bringing technology to Kenya, it's bringing technology to the continent and encouraging more investors that are going to improve our economic system. You've talked about we are donating brains to other jurisdictions outside Africa. If we developed our continent, it would be possible to retain this great human resource to develop the continent of Africa, and we make Africa the best home. So all this then is about leadership. How are we going to make Africa look like Singapore, Malaysia, and the Asian tigers? How are we going to do it? It is through leadership.
Through leadership.
And through strong,
and that brings me to the next question.
Strong democratic practices.
And that brings the next question.
And making every jurisdiction within the continent of Africa to understand and engage in buying, and we move in one common direction. Africa has suffered historical, long history of division, and we are divided by our former colonial masters. We are linguistically divided. The Francophone are on their own, with their own lifestyle. The Anglophones on their own. The Arabs are on their own.
What you're saying might not go so well with our masters.
No, but it's good we speak about it.
Exactly.
That's the truth, we speak about it.
In terms of legislation, Kenyan Parliament is one of the robust in as far as legislative process is concerned. How do we bring that in terms of legislation and strengthening the bond between us and other nations across Africa or even beyond? The debate in the House is one of the best.
I think the leadership of the House, that is the Speaker of the National Assembly, and of course the Speaker of the Senate, have to establish caucuses between Kenya Parliament and other nations in Africa. For instance, the caucus between Kenya and Nigeria, members of Parliament, Kenya and South Africa's members of Parliament, so that we can have those forums where we are in agreement that, guys, we are one people.
Yes.
We don't need to fear.
Where does that place us?
In terms of what?
As a country, in the global arena?
As a nation, we have to... Of course, Kenyans are aggressive. Kenyans are feared in Africa. Whether we go to South Africa or in Tanzania or in Uganda, we are known that we are smart, we work hard, we know our thing. Whatever you are saying you are good at, you can. It is true. You perform better than many of the other African professionals trained in different universities. But the point is, the politician in South Africa, the politician in Nigeria, the politician in Niger, and other African nations. Among those politicians, they are the ones who one day, 15 years, 20 years from now, some of them will be the heads of state. Even now, in the Republic of Kenya, some of the guys in Parliament, they will be president of this nation in another 20 years. Okay? So we have to build that exchange programs between these leaders, because one of them will emerge through the democratic processes.
Maybe one of you here. Why are you not saying it's here?
You never know.
Well, exactly. To be constant and say yes, any of the leadership in this country, those in parliament, shall definitely end up as president, because we've got a democratic term limit of 10 years.
Yes.
William Ruto will have a maximum
so it's like
of
a revolving
10 years.
Yeah.
And then after 10 years, Kenyans will elect another younger Kenyan. And that is a pattern in democracies all over Africa. The term limit has been instituted, and That is what it is. So really, what Mheshimiwa Ruku is talking about is that we must bring together the leadership across our countries in Africa, maybe through the Pan-African Parliament, and strengthen so there is stronger collaboration, so that there is ideological convergence, and you can provide an enabling ecosystem of developing uniform policies. The legislative, the legal systems can also have, through that arrangement, can have an ecosystem where they can come together right across the continent. The economists and the rest will have that framework. And I think the master key to all this is the political system. You bring the political system, all other entities will find their space.
Let me give you an example. Let me put it in context. Why I'm talking about the leadership of the House, the speakers established some of these caucuses. We are saying European nations or West world has a lot of influence towards the affairs of African nations. A German foundation, most of the German foundations are supported by political parties in Germany. Through some of these foundations, we attended some MPs conference. And through that, today, I'm a friend to Honorable Savibi of Angola. He's a member of parliament there. His father was, in war, in the forest, fighting for many years. Okay, so this is a guy who is likely to be the president of Angola in the coming years. So we need such kind of forums whereby a leader in Kenya can be able to make a call to another leader in Angola, have a discussion. They can meet. So that we can continue demystifying the myth of Kenyans are not good, Nigerians are not good, these and these, they are lazy, So that we continue demystifying that and unifying our nation, our continent. That is very important to happen. And we must find a way of making it happen. I really like how Marema is championing the Pan-Africanism
in South Africa.
In South Africa,
yes. Parliament.
I really admire, and I hope this is something. I think this is something which we are going to
bring it back home.
Start seeing in most of African nations. We also see it in Kenya. We also see it in other nations. Okay, and in the coming years, we unify our economies. We abolish the business of visas. That for you to go to Nigeria, you must go to embassy. For you to go to South Africa, you need to, procedures. Though now Kenya and South Africa has that relation. I mean, you don't require a visa at the moment to go to South Africa, but you can only be there for 3 months without a visa. So we have to unify all the boundaries. These boundaries are not our making. They were made by some pharaoh sitting in Bahrain in 1885. We must find a way of doing away with these boundaries. Them, they don't have boundaries at the moment. They can be able to travel across Europe the way they want.
Wakili is
but
here.
now,
he's listening. Maybe drafting some laws can now fall on his desk. Wakili, when you talk about the legal aspect,
yes,
the laws in Kenya, the constitution in Kenya, the Kenya constitution is one of the most progressive. I mean, the 2010.
Yes.
You all agree with me. But then, from the legal perspective, you understand that a lot of laws are also borrowed from here. A lot of references are also made from here. The way you can say, based in India, judgment, this and that, I'm so sure some other jurisdictions are also coping, also doing referrals and references in Kenyan law. How do we help the president, as an individual, from the legal aspect and the justice system? How do we make it our country through the president and maintaining that momentum until the end, and even shine better than our brothers out there?
I think most of our boundaries are actually created by law. Most of our technical boundaries are created by law. Even Kenya is also established through the constitution in terms of boundaries and things like that. So I think from a legal standpoint, it's actually to open the borders in a way that serves all of us. between our neighbors, between our brothers out there, either within Africa or out. And you'd be surprised that when you travel around the world, most of our differences are really not that big. A family in Rwanda, a family in Nigeria, a family in Kenya would be the same family. They want a good education for their children, they want good health care, and they just want a decent life. So sometimes some of these boundaries really do not exist. They exist only in law and as a fiction that was created, as Mheshimiwa said here, from the Berlin Conference in 1885, and subsequently with the way the politics has been organized around the continent and around the world. But when it comes to humanity, I think what the legal system can do is to shrink those boundaries and allow people to travel, cross-border, trade, and interact with the least sort of obstructions as possible.
How possible is this? So that we break the chain. You know, the non-tariff barriers, for example, the trade barriers.
Yes.
The president is we'll have that free trade to South Africa and other countries, but then how quick can that happen?
It depends actually a lot on politics, even than the law.
That goes back to
I think
it's all about politics and leadership.
Yes, it's more about politics and leadership. The law just comes as the last instrument to put together those agreements in terms of how countries agree, how politicians agree, and things like that. But the law is not the first. The law is there to serve man and not the other way around.
So, okay.
Yes.
Now then the question, the question comes in.
Yes.
How long did it take for EU
to
be established?
Yes.
And how long did it take for the Schengen countries to come together and agree? The port of entry can only be, say, for example, Amsterdam. Once you're in Amsterdam, you are clear to enter any other country within the Schengen network. All this is political goodwill. As has been stated, it doesn't mean we are going to dissolve the independent jurisdiction of the various countries. They will exist as free countries. But then we must eliminate completely the barriers contained in through the visas. If you go to immigration at the Jomo Kenyatta Airport, you will get it. We have our own system here within the country that makes it impossible even for Sudanese to get into the country. Why do we really create those barriers? We created them. And all these boundaries were created and sustained through strong, stringent visa restriction so that it can benefit our former colonies. They can continue exploiting. Because a more open Africa and a more open continent will benefit the people of Africa. So I think the key thing is to achieve certain things. Number one, free movement of goods. Goods can move.
And this will work for Kenya.
Like if we have the standard gauge railway, the standard gauge railway can be built all the way to Lagos with time. And the air tickets and the air flights will be cheaper within the continent. Maybe you can use 10, 20,000 shillings to fly all the way to South Africa. And these barriers are removed. It is going to make movement of people very cheap, convenient, and movement of goods. Like now here in Kenya, in the Kenyan coast, Ugandans are coming to wed. They love coming for wedding parties and the rest. So when you relax these barriers, you will have more visitors coming to enjoy their time and going back. So there's a lot in terms of convenience to the lives of the people. The beneficiaries are our own people. How long does it take? We have AU, the African Union, has that mandate to put in place mechanism. And I can tell you, I was the president, EI, Education International, that brings together all teachers' unions within the continent. And you realize, once these groups come together, you realize it's completely no difference.
The same way you're speaking, that
people with the same aspiration.
Our needs are almost the same.
So all we need is a political ecosystem that removes these barriers completely. And we must begin doing it as a country, which the president is doing, trying to negotiate free visa entries with the different countries. We saw with Eritrea the other day. Is it Eritrea or Djibouti? Anybody from Djibouti can come. We saw with Sri Lanka the same thing, that people are free to fly and fly out without having to apply for visas. And we have seen in terms of tourism, the biggest barrier that stopped tourists from source markets even in Europe from coming to Kenya is the security aspect connected with the way in which we issue our visas. We've put so strong, strict systems that act as a barrier. So I think how fast we can do these things is the leadership of AU. How fast can AU Secretariat move to enable these policies to take root within the continent? And once that is done within that political framework, then the legal framework will be developed to facilitate.
Allow me to ask this question, Wakili. What do you think is in the brain of the president, in as far as this is concerned, to strengthen our global strength as a nation with other jurisdictions? What do you think is the president thinking?
I think he's, my view, my personal view is that probably he's thinking about creating more access to our country, so that is beneficial in terms of business and trade. Yes. Okay. And I think and obviously the interaction and as you open our country, you also open our perspectives and our ideas and things like that. So I think principally it's just to open Kenya for business.
Okay.
Yes.
Very well. Okay, we almost coming to a close, and I want to do something here that has never happened on this show, and I'm made to understand that you are garnering for some seats somewhere.
Yes, that's
you'll have to tell us, and I'll give Mheshimiwa Ruku. Today I'm not going to ask questions, so it's going to be this way. I'll give Mheshimiwa Ruku a chance to ask you a question. And Mheshimiwa Sosion to also ask you a question. You're also garnering for position of JSC coming next year. How important is this position? It must be so competitive.
Yeah, it's a fairly competitive position because of what it does in terms of policy for our country, in terms of access to justice, hiring of judges and magistrates, disciplining of the judges and magistrates, and also the making sure that Kenyans have courts in whichever part of the country that there is.
And do you think you suit the bill?
Yes.
Okay.
I fit the bill.
Very well. Mheshimiwa Ruku, you have a chance to ask him a question. As if you're part of the panel.
Which position is this?
Judicial Service Commissioner.
As a commissioner or as
commissioner?
Commissioner.
Right. Yeah. So for you to serve in the commission, at the Judicial Service Commission, you have to be elected by advocates. We have a male advocate who's elected by members and a female. So the position that is coming up is the position for male representative.
So you have a moment to ask him a question.
So why is it that judiciary is surrounded by so much mystery, such that the common mwananchi in a very remote village in Bere, very deep, not even in the market centers, not in Chicago, not in Ishara, deep in the village. The judiciary is there to serve Kenyans. All these Kenyans who are in the villages in Turkana, in Bere, in other places. And we have not seen a lot of effort from those who are steering our judiciary or justice administration system, giving information to these Kenyans who are doing their normal things deep in the village. Because we, the politicians who go and ask for vote, we go to each and every village, interior, everywhere. We have seen that with the president going around in every corner of this nation, trying to talk to Kenyans. And I think that should be the spirit of every public, especially the three arms of government, which is executive, We have seen that with the president, which is registration. We have seen it with all those who are serving there as members. But we have never seen it with the judiciary. So, as a commissioner there, do you think this is something you can achieve? Do you think it's an important element?
Okay, go ahead.
Should we continue thinking that judiciary is a mystery, is a space for very special pharaohs? It's as if they don't stay in this society. They are. I mean, why all these mysteries? Why don't you disabuse these mysteries and, give information to
you have time to respond.
Yes. I think after the 2010 constitution, the judiciary is actually owned by Kenyans. The mandate to govern, part of the mandate to govern is given to the executive, and the mandate to adjudicate over disputes is given to the judiciary. So the judiciary is also an arm of government. And as Mheshimiwa says rightly, it's important that every Kenyan knows, to the deepest part of Kenya, that disputes can be resolved through going to courts and not carrying pangas and things like that. So it is important, as Mheshimiwa says, and I agree that as part of the mandate of the Judicial Service Commission is to educate Kenyans and illuminate them about what needs to be done in terms of access to justice and things like that. So yes, that's one of the things.
I'm not saying that's part of the question that will come during the interview.
Yes.
All right, that's according to him.
It's a believable question.
Very quickly.
Yes, after the enactment of Kenya Constitution 2010,
yes,
I think the judiciary has gained a great latitude of space and independence. But more is expected. If I can refer to a tweet and a clip of Ahmed Nazir Abdullahi, the statement he made about the judiciary still scares us, that the level of corruption and taking of bribes by judges is one of the highest, and that is reducing advocates. You are an officer of the court to mere clerks, and that affects the delivery of justice. What do you intend to do, and what value are we going to add to the Judicial Service Commission so that we can really have a transparent judicial system in this country that facilitates justice?
Very good. Very good.
That's a good question.
Very quickly.
I think, and I agree partly that corruption is now really endemic, but the problem is that is to get the players to bring the issue before, I think, the Judicial Service Commission. My view is that once you get somebody who is involved in corruption, use him as an example and punish him so harshly that it sends a message to the rest of the judicial officers that corruption is not condoned. I saw that tweet where Ahmed was saying that that now bribes are being taken in dollars, and it's alarming.
You don't pay in shillings.
You pay. Now it's a dollar denomination.
Yes,
and that is really alarming, because then what does that mean to the common mwananchi?
Right.
Myself, Mr. Sosion here, Mheshimiwa,
users of the court,
going to court and accessing it and saying that I need to pay for justice in dollars. It's a grave indictment, and I think it's one of the things that has not really been addressed. Yes, and I intend to address it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. We did something that we've never done here on the show, giving my guests a moment to ask questions, because you also have a moment to ask questions. They are also Kenyans and they need that position to ask questions as far as this is concerned. Thank you so much. You are leaders in your own rights, and thank you so much for joining us. Omwanza Ombati, who is an advocate of the High Court, we wish you all the best during your vetting. Mheshimiwa Ruku, representing the great people of Mbeere North, asante sana for being a friend of the show, as well as Wilson Sosion, CS, as well as former Walimu. You need to bring a blackboard here one day.
Mwalimu is still a mwalimu. A teacher is always a teacher.
Thank you so much for joining us. Up next, we want to talk about peace in our country. And you know who is around? Engineer Philip Okundi, Commissioner at the NCIC. Let's talk about that shortly after we come back after this break. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Victor Lowe. Good morning. Bye-bye.
Vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth, uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent. Gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC sasa wamekama up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wana offer mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea Studio Mashinani huko Comarox, Langata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through Studio Mashinani.
Who is this?
But Lord knows that I don't want to be lonely tonight. They don't know, and I said they don't know.
She's not here for a night of day. She loves it when the music plays.
All the bridges are burned. You're still not sure no love is like you're not learned. You have to be a brother's keeper. You could be
Turkana County Government welcomes you to the Ekalez Cultural Center in Lodwar for the 7th edition of the Turkana Tourism and Cultural Festival. From the 12th to the 14th of October 2023. Come, experience the cradle of mankind. Its unmatched beauty from the beaches of Lake Turkana to the oil fields of Lokichar. Live on Channel 1, Radio Taifa and Turkana Service.
원이 죽었어. 나는 안전한 건가? 내 안전 보장할 수 있어? 걱정 마. 우리 뒤엔 국장님이 있어.
그 코러스 때문에 KBC 제약 주가가 완전 폭등이래. 연일 상한가. 내가 비자금이 있었으면 미리 사놓는 건데 아주 좋아.
작전에 실패했어요.
There is no wealth without health, and it all begins here. And regular exercise. Your Health Show brings you an array of health information to keep you informed and healthy. Real people and real stories.
Kurasa wa wadi baada ya siku 2-3 nikapelekwa theater. Wakasema wametoa nyama upande wa nyuma. Walipopima hiyo nyama walipata ni kansa.
Nasema wewe rafiki yangu sasa kwa huo umri ulio uko nao kama hivi unafanya na mama pumbo wewe. Uliyapata wapi wewe? Na mimi namwambia mimi mwenyewe pia mimi nashangaa.
Join me, Marie Yambo, from the laboratories to the theaters as we feature cutting-edge technology in healthcare diagnosis and treatment, only on KBC Channel 1.
It's a cocktail of emotions. The puns that cracks up the family. Greed that yields power and a hunger for success. Trends turn to falls. Survival for the fittest is the drive.
Who are we blackmailing?
But nothing beats the feud in a family where one disappears and another fights for the crown.
It was not supposed to go this far.
It's the desire to succeed that keeps us going, the deception that keeps us digging, and the laughter pill that keeps us living.
This week on What's in Your Kitchen, we taste taita kimanga, steamed rice, and chicken adobo, courtesy of our guest cook, Dominic.
We don't put chumvi because there is, this is our cooking stick.
Okay.
Now we use...
I don't take all.
Just one piece.
Why? So you were cooking for me?
For the rest.
No, but you were cooking for me. You are not cooking for the rest. Ajana na the rest. Awako.
Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Vivian Ndegwa. Now, every year on the 21st of September, the world gets to commemorate the International Day of Peace, which is a day that has been set aside to strengthen the ideals of peace. And joining me in studio to talk about the significance of peace is a commissioner from the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, that is Honorable Engineer Philip Okunde. Engineer, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I believe it must have been nostalgic for you while you were getting into KBC, having been once the CEO of this corporation. How was that?
Yeah, I thank you very much. First of all, good morning, viewers. Good morning, our good friends at the KBC. I remember many years back, I was appointed by the then president, the late President Daniel Arap Moi, and he asked me to head a committee which was called the Presidential Commission on the Voice of Kenya. At that time, the broadcasting entity in this country was the Voice of Kenya. And he said, look at it and tell me what we need to do in this changing world. And at that time, we had a very strong group of media people and then engineers as well. At that time, I was managing director of Kenya Ports Authority.
Yeah.
And when we came and we found that the Voice of Kenya was really losing ground, there was a big upsurge of need to privatize broadcasting. And there was a lot of pressure on the leadership at the time. But we also found that the Voice of Kenya really existed, but mainly was a big, I would say, propaganda machine for government, because they were mainly just full of Kenya News Agency. And they produce very good news, but mainly political news. And people didn't like it, so many people found it very difficult to advertise, tell their products through the media. So we decided as a final recommendation to recommend for the collapse of the Voice of Kenya. This was very difficult to sell. I was charged to go and talk to the president at that time and see if he would agree to collapsing, and then tell him what we want to do. Then what we recommended was that there will be a government entity which will be commercially run. It must be commercial in nature. It should produce some money
to run it, plus also interventions or government funding. And that was the birth of the now KBC. But we found that in the old days, during the colonial days, there was Kenya Broadcasting Service, which was also basically a commercial venture sort of thing, but basically government. And that's how we formed it. And we went and convinced the president in the presentation, and he agreed. Fortunately, we did not, that would be thrown away. And then he said, oh, that's fine.
Yeah, and here we are now.
Here we are now.
All right, thank you for that history class. And now if we can get into the main business of the day, where we will be talking about peace as we commemorate the International Peace Day tomorrow, the 21st. From my point of view, peace means the absence of war and overall tranquility. I don't know what peace means to you.
Yeah, Vivian, peace is crucial for everything we do in life. In fact, even we would not be here if there wasn't peace.
True.
Even in the household, you require peace to be able to manage the affairs of your home. You require peace to do anything, to travel on the road, to do business, to whatever. And so we are a body that was crafted out of need for peace. If I may tell you a little bit of the background of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, we were created out of need for peace in this country. As you know, as a Kenyan, almost every election cycle, there's always violence coming forward. People are very much having difficulty in agreeing with one another. Siasa is just sihasa. It's not
sihasa.
And under those circumstances, you find that people just find it very easy to disagree. So in 2007, we had a general election, and when the results came out, people disputed the results. And out of this dispute, that brought a lot of fighting. And Kenyans fought all over, everywhere, tribe by tribe, ethnic areas, and so on. In fact, we have deaths of almost 600 people died, and more than 1,000 were completely, harmed and so on. So, what were athirika watu wengi sana. So, the world community, headed by the then Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, he rallied local, regional leaders in Kenya, local leaders, the presidents, and he chose President of Ghana, John Kufuor, to come and head a team to investigate what's wrong with Kenya so that we can put Kenya back on track. And this is how this thing came about. In fact, their recommendation was that, look here, we formed what is called a National Dialogue and Reconciliation Agreement. The recommendations here, this agreement, we have found that we must do some things in order to have peace in Kenya. And they said, stop violence, Kenya, otherwise the whole international community will work against you. And second one is settle into a government of national unity, so that every community in Kenya can see some of their people inside that government machine, and that will make people happy. The third one is that settle people who have been affected by this violence. In other words, the IDPs, internally displaced persons. And the fourth one, he said, form what will forever be here to preach peace and discuss with people, a body that will deal with national cohesion, and a body that will also integrate the various elements that are in Kenya to make peace. And that was ourselves. And then they tabled this act, which is an act of parliament, dealing with the National Dialogue and Reconciliation Agreement. And that's how we were formed.
Okay.
Act number 12 of 2008. So that's ourselves. Now we are dealing with this. What does it mean? The mandate is very wide. We have to create possibilities for people to dialogue. And that means the building peace. In fact, we must work on the building on an architecture of a building peace architecture in the whole country, so that everybody find a way to dialogue in order to find a solution that does not lead people into violence.
Yeah. If I may ask, what would you point out as some of the issues that threaten peace in this country?
Well, basically land. People fight about properties, land. And secondly, in the most drier areas, which we'll talk about, like mostly drier areas in north of Kenya, the livestock is always looking for watering points. And that has caused an enormous amount of disagreements. So people steal livestock and whatnot, and this bring threats to peace, which has caused lots of wars, and many people have died because of this. And every Kenyan is hearing about this thing all the time. So our mandate, therefore, has to compass fostering national identity, their values, then mitigating ethno-political issues, because there are sort of political issues. Some of this lack of these properties, lack of values and so on, lack of so many things, they get into a political arena which gets people to fight and make sure the peace is not there. And ourselves now have to go into all this, check on discrimination, tribalism, racialism, and try to foster a national healing by dialoguing between these people when we have sensitized them over a number of issues that have caused this kind of possibilities to violence.
Yeah, and speaking of that, we have places in northeastern, if I could just point out Baringo, which is where you will be holding this year's celebration of International Peace Day. Places like Baringo, we've seen communities in constant feuds. They're always fighting. Maybe what is not being done, or what is NCIC doing to avert this situation?
Yeah, I would say Baringo is one. But I will tell you that we have chosen this year to go to the most affected county in this country, and that is Samburu. Samburu has experienced enormous drought, just like others in that region. But there has been over 60% of thefts of cattle. There's a lot of thefts. And this means that people take arms and fight one another to recover the livestock which have been stolen. And we thought that we better celebrate this International Day of Peace there, because that county is very badly affected. And as you have seen, many people are dying, morons and whatnot. But basically it's because of lack of resources and lack of water, because watering points in Samburu, for example, are areas which cause people to disagree very easily. Somebody insists on a watering point for his livestock, and the other fellows insist on that way, and then there's always a fight. And we've chosen to go there and talk peace there, because today the global peace celebration is to commemorate, and with a theme that we have, which is action for peace, our ambition for the global goals. If we don't have peace, the global goals that anybody has, the world community has, will not be achieved unless we have peace. Right now you have, even in Europe, you have Ukraine being at war with Russia, And that's affecting the whole country. The whole world is affected. Some people said that oil prices are going up because of Ukraine war. Now, I mean, many people in Kenya don't even know where Ukraine is, but the effects of disagreements there and the war which is there is affecting us, plus other places as well.
We've enjoyed stability as a country. What would you attribute to this?
Our stability, you know, Kenyans, we have an attribute where a Kenyan is normally a peace-loving person. Very intelligent people, very good people, very understanding. They more or less, once you explain and understand what you want to do, Kenyans will largely agree with you without any problems. And all those are attributes that bring peace very easily indeed. And I think we are endowed with enormous amount of intelligence, enormous amount of hard-working culture. People work very hard and people respect one another. But nevertheless, we find ourselves drawn into areas where people don't agree with one another. Because there's greed about wanting to have this more than the other. But otherwise, our job as NCIC is sensitizing people. We sensitize the youth, we sensitize the middle-aged people, we also sensitize government, those in authority, we talk with them. We even have what is called ethnic audit. So there we come to your organization and we talk with you and see who is employed where, what position and so on, and where does he come from. The idea is to just tell you as a leader there that, all right, although this device you're running looks like this, here you need to adjust. Because there's a law that nobody is allowed to hire more than 30% of one ethnic group. But things have, in the past, have happened where this is all over the place. But nevertheless, in time, as we embrace peace, as we embrace the idea that everybody else in this country has a chance to contribute, I think slowly these things will be moderated very well and will work out better for everybody else.
Okay. On that thought is where we'll take a short break, but we'll be back with this conversation.
KBC brings you children's programs at its very best. From preschoolers to the teens, featuring the very best of untapped talents, showcasing arts and crafts, music and poetry. We bring you the latest animations and teach the children how to do it.
Can you read the word with Happy Hippo?
Join us every Saturday from 7 a.m. and weekdays in the late afternoons as we bring you entertaining children programming on KBC Channel 1.
뻔히 죽었어. 나는 안전한 건가? 내 안전 보장할 수 있어? 걱정 마. 우리 뒤엔 국장님이 있어.
그 코러스 때문에 케이스 제약 주가가 완전 폭등이래. 연일 상한가. 내가 비자금이 있었으면 미리 사놓는 건데 아주 좋아.
작전에 실패했어요.
Live from Broadcasting House, Nairobi, Kenya. This is KBC KBC English Service.
Welcome to Beat Time Show, the very best of the 80s and 90s. Me, John Korani, JK.
Timeless music hits across the decades.
This is the place to be after you've had a tough day. Here we celebrate love and life.
Don't believe me, just watch.
The sound of KBC English Service.
I'm the host Caroline Wangishi, Carol Gatata Moshero.
My name is Geoffrey Mongai.
News, information and entertainment. KBC English Service, Kenya's official national radio.
Ikitoka nje hii gate, usifungulie mtu mwingine yoyote.
Ulitoka hapa kwangu na hasira, hadi ukanivunjia mpaka mlango. Tena umerudi wewe na hasira. Nikueleweje mimi?
Achana na mimi.
Amefukuzana nani? Amfukuzwa na babako. Kaeke begi ende jikoni ukapike.
Yaani mimi nitokako? Wewe unketi tu hapo. Alafu mimi ninge jikoni nikupikie. Twende.
Baba twende. Zito atakwenda kanijua mimi ni nani?
Welcome back to the program. In studio with me is Engineer Philip Okundi, and he is here to talk to us about Matters Peace as we get to commemorate the International Peace Day tomorrow. Now, Engineer, you've cited tribalism as one of the threats to peace in this country. Maybe what is NCIC doing to ensure that this is not a cycle that keeps going on?
Yeah, I think in a very broad way, the answer is that we need to appreciate one another as part of us in Kenya, and we need to talk together to build one nation. If we do not do that, then it will be possible for us to fragment into pieces which can be ungovernable.
Yeah.
Just to give you what I cited earlier, last year, we were going into the general elections, and we know and we found out through research that each time Kenya is going for a general election, there's always approaches to a very, very, very violent kind of situation, which has happened so many times.
Yeah.
So we said that let us do a roadmap to a peaceful general election. And that was a program for a whole year. We sensitized everywhere we went. We talked to people. We said, look, let's have this time round a peaceful general election. Even if the results come out which we don't like, let us go through the legal means to make sure we don't fight. And somehow Kenyans were coming forward very well to accept this. We designed what was called a political decorum, a political peace charter, whereby whoever was leading a party which produces candidates, as well as those candidates, they will sign this charter such that they have a political decency, such that they don't utter words which bring people to disagree or people unhappy, and such that they become progressive in what they do. And they signed it, and we said, look, if we don't do this, then we will take legal means to try and explain what you did, and then you will be punished in some way or another. But at the same time, we said, even if you disagree, just go through the legal channels, go to court, and it will be done, and that's what has happened. I would say that largely, that thing helped a lot. It helped a lot, and I can say that we had an election which still there were disputes, like always in every election, but nevertheless, Kenyans did not come out to fight, to have violence because of the results that were disputed.
Which was a plus.
Yeah, that's a big plus. The second point is that we released as NCIC data throughout Kenya, mapping out hotspots in our country which are very, very vulnerable to disruption of peace. And we named them, each and every one. And we said, everybody who's been named in this, please do your best to bring peace in whatever you do. Because the facts are there. And people who disputed, we gave them the facts. We gave them the facts because the administration on the ground, the county governments, they are on the ground. They know what is happening. Sometimes, you might say that it's peaceful, but people are corroborating or agitating. But the facts are that those people want positions. They utter some words inside, some there, which make people fight one another. So we exposed this. When we exposed this, it became clear that somebody has to do best to take their names out of that list where the hotspots were. So now we decided that now, after this election, which became quite peaceful, there was no violence, whatever the circumstances, we need now to go into what is called deepening peace and cohesion for prosperity of Kenya. So this we do with so many programs. We go out and we meet the various people from the lowest to the highest, and we talk with them and we tell them what we have found in their area that require to be addressed in order to create peace in the area. I think that's the little I can do, and I can tell you even more that when I mentioned Samburu, choosing Samburu to go and celebrate this question of global peace, we looked at what was going on. The place was mad with ethnic issues because of watering points. The livestock, people were looking for watering points for their pasture. They were looking for pasture, they were looking for water for their livestock, they are looking for water for themselves. So this caused a lot of trouble because these things were scarce because there was too much drought. And therefore, for us to go there and tell them and talk about this, and they will appreciate what is happening.
Yeah. Okay. If there's an area that I feel like should really be looked at, has to be on social media, because that is where we see people just spewing words left, right, and center. Probably, are there policies set in place to ensure that, the space that is social media is also looked upon when it comes to, matters peace? Because I feel like that's a dangerous place.
Thank you very much. I think in our act, there is what is called hate speech. And hate speech has resulted in even the First World War, the Second World War, they were a product of hate speech. Even now, amidst ourselves here, there is hate speech. As a politician, because I've been a politician, there is chances that you'll have a hate speech against your opponent. And you may say words like, for example, when they say, look here, you people, why do you allow these people to come here? Hii madoadoa inakuja kati yenu, inaleta shida kwa siasa yetu. Hii nini, all kinds of things. They call you all kinds of names. And when they go to vernacular, they use a vernacular which is understood by your audience, but the other people don't know. Now, this now builds up a situation of a hate speech, which can lead to violence, very serious violence. If you abuse somebody and you call him this or that, then you are telling the other people who are with him or her to react, and you also react, and this causes this kind of thing. Now, I would say that part of our problem in Kenya, and I like to just challenge you if you allow me.
Please do.
I think part of the mistake is you people,
You people being us as the media?
You people, the media. The media, do something about this. If you could have, even in the newspapers, daily newspapers, even a daily broadcast, have something about peace. Talk about peace. And put an example where peace has helped wherever. And that people can follow it. But what you will find in Kenyan media reports is more of a political situation where somebody is disagreeing with somebody. If there's disagreement, that's news. If there's an agreement which is good, that's not news. You know, like today, there would have been a kind of, you read about peace, what's going on about peace. Even these meetings going on about UN now, they're talking about peace.
Yeah.
You go to regional meetings, you go about peace. They talk about economics. No economic progress will take place without peace being embraced.
That is true.
So you people, you also try and be smart enough on that line. You will help us a lot.
Challenge taken.
Yeah.
It's definitely taken. We saw yesterday President Biden applauding the efforts of our president in just trying to promote peace not only in the region but also in faraway lands like Haiti, you know, where we know that they are going through some instability when it comes to peace. Probably what is our role as a country generally in promoting world peace?
Well, our job is to embrace that recognition. We embrace that recognition a lot, and we use this as an example wherever we are doing, whatever we are doing. Like now, we are celebrating this action for peace, which the theme is action for peace.
Yeah.
Our ambition for the global goals. So the global goals, like that one which the President of the United States talked about, is looking at a global goal to have a peace globally.
Yeah.
And here, Kenya had the President had allowed, who is the Commander-in-Chief, had allowed his troops to go and help settle some peace in Haiti. Now that is an aspect which has been recognized, which I think is very good.
Yeah.
Very good, and we embrace that a lot. Now, our job now is just to see if globally people talk about peace, why don't we ourselves become so peaceful that whatever the attributes people talk about Kenya is seen exactly how we behave, how we do things. You know, if we knew that there has to be peace, our elections will not be violent, will not be such that people you find they're beaten, they're whatnot, you know. Like when we go to elections, you find that somebody you recruit to become your what is it? The youths. Huh? They tell you how many people they are beaten, you know. And
it's unfortunate.
I laugh because I know it is happening. But if people would not fight, you go on issues. I want to be elected on the following issues. These are issues I want to lead you, get you to farm, get you to use money properly, get you to see that even if there is a crisis, like you have a crisis globally of a certain kind, it doesn't come and affect our people adversely. That's why I have to be there to let you know what to do. Yeah. But after all, and above all, there must be a peace in this process. Then I think we should be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What maybe is our individual role as citizens of this country to ensure that peace prevails? What role do we have?
I think your role as individuals is embrace one another. See to it that, like in the old days, a neighbor would give you part of his farm to farm. And then you'd harvest, and that harvest can be shared amongst you people. And secondly, help one another and appreciate diversity. In other words, some people are not well endowed like maybe others. So appreciate them, they're part and parcel of you. So even if you're hiring people, have some idea that everybody else in Kenya needs a place to survive and do well.
Yeah.
And that even in their work, the condition of their work should be such that it is habitable to everybody else. The other role is not to push people to hate one another. The hate speeches, it is more pronounced when people use hate speech using a language which is understood by his or her audience, but basically in their vernacular language. But it means a lot in the other people who don't understand. So they think that it is housed within their own place, but it's not necessarily so. So, as individuals, let us bear in mind that at the end of the day, it's Kenya that matters, because it is our country, and that we should do our best to ensure that we peacefully live with one another, and also appreciate the problems. Like the people in the north, cattle after cattle, they have died. And the places are so dry. You look at some places in Baringo, they are so dry that you dare not walk there because the cracks are very big. And so these weather conditions are bad. And as a result, try and understand their problem, because they're looking for grazing land, they're looking for watering point, they're looking for, and see how best you can mitigate the situation that everybody else ends up better than if others are beaten and killed.
Okay.
The other aspect I want to say, at the moment, the NCIC is doing lots of meetings with the county of Kisumu, both from the administration and from the county government. At the same time, doing the same thing with the county of Kericho. And at the same time, doing the same thing with the county of Nandi, and also with Vihiga. These are counties which are bordering with Kisumu. But we found that violence flared up at Sondu Market. What they're looking for there is just the same revenues, you know. Kericho County wants our revenues, which is levied at the market. Kisumu County wants the same. So they're saying, you know, this place where people are meeting, because people are meeting here, different people from Kisii, from Kericho, from Kisumu, from Nandi, and you know, people are meeting there, all kinds of, because it's a marketplace, an interchange place. Eventually it will become maybe like a town, which is a cosmopolitan place. But if we go there with violence, where some people are losing their lives, at the moment, the loss of lives is quite a bit. That we are dialoguing, I think we are almost reaching a very good point, where now we are going to meet finally and agree a peace protocol. Now, until that happens, it is very difficult to read. I give an example, a place like called a market between Kisumu and Vihiga. It's called Maragoli or something. It's called Maragoli. There you go in the market, you find wares being sold by people speaking Luya, and the other side people speaking Nandi, the other side people speaking Luo, and the other side whatever. But when you talk to any one of them, they speak all these languages very happily. So you can't tell who you are dealing with, and therefore there's always peace in that place. That's a culture that we want to make sure happens elsewhere.
Yeah.
Then we had also, as NCIC, we found that between Nandi County and Kakamega County, there always was war. So between them, it's a very rich land bordering a place called Tobolwa. And you ask the Nandi people, they say, oh, our land goes all the way to Kakamega. When you tell the Kakamega guys, oh, my land, all the way to Kapsabet. So, you know, they are fighting all the time. So nobody could do any meaningful development in that particular. We met for about 3-4 weeks, and they all understood, and they managed now to talk to one another.
Okay.
So we decided that in these same communities, we will have to build common schools, common road, common market, such that everybody can use that place because they belong to the same place. And now they seem to be getting. Now, if we can replicate this in various places in Kenya, where we have disruption to peace, I think that that is a way forward. But we need the media to help us here. Don't just report that occasion only and then you disappear. When you disappear is when these ideas, you just disappear.
Yeah, it should be a regular thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be wrong for us to finish this discussion without talking about the isolated cases of terrorism that we have experienced in the country over the years. Maybe what is being done to ensure that our borders remain secured. And I don't know if you will correct me in this if I'm wrong. I don't know if the crash that happened yesterday in Lamu is a terrorist attack. I'm not sure. You can just shed light on that as you tell me what is being done to ensure that our borders remain secured.
I know that the helicopter, which was carrying our defense people coming from Somali side towards Kenya, they crashed. And I think we lost something like 12 lives. It's very sad indeed.
Yeah.
But the idea of maintaining peace along the borders is one aspect and a very key assignment to government. And the government is dealing with that in a very thorough way. We, as a commission, we are called upon, and we do, to supply whatever information and whatever activities we need to say along our borders, wherever the borders are, what should happen. It's a big task. In fact, the Ministry of Internal Security is the one where our line ministry, and we are very much involved in the kind of discussion. But you can see that unless there is peace in all the areas of our activities, we will not go very far. We will not even farm, we will not even sell our products, we will not even import products and bring them along to our people.
I will now allow you to tell us a bit of the activities that will be taking place tomorrow as we commemorate this day, as you'll be doing that in Samburu.
Well, in Samburu, we are going to meet with the leaders, the political leaders, and the elders of the area, and the youth, and the schools, and the churches. We will meet, and then we shall demonstrate a number of activities, maybe a walk for peace we shall have. There will also be certain traditional enjoyment that people can have in Samburu tomorrow. So it's going to be quite a day. It's going to be quite a day. There's a whole range of activities which I don't think we can read all of them here.
Okay.
But the whole idea is to work for peace and announce peace, announce where agreements have been agreed, because there's a lot of agreement. We have what is called a Maya Triangle. That is the Turkana, the Samburus, there is also the Isiolo people. So that triangle alone, we have agreed how to make peace in that place. You know, the Samburu, for example, they have always been having the Samburus and the Turkanas. There's always a fight. And when you look at the fight, it is about watering points, about the pastures for the livestock, and about thefts of the livestock which can't be recovered. And all this put together, the amount of disruption, very major disruption of peace. It means that whatever is voted to go to that county, to build the county, very little of it will work, because people are afraid to create those assets that can grow other incomes to the country. And therefore, all this we shall talk about when we are there.
All right. Thank you so much, Engineer Philip, for coming to the program, and thank you so much for shedding light on peace, which is an integral part in any society. All right. This is where... You're welcome. This is where Good Morning Kenya ends. Thank you so much for tuning in. We now head straight to the Senate for the proceedings. My name is Vivian Degwa. See you next time.
Who is this?
But Lord knows that I don't want to be lonely tonight. They don't know, and I said they don't know. Whoa. She's not here for a night of day. She loves it when the music plays. All the bridges are burned. You're still not sure no love. It's like you no learn. You have to be a brother's keeper.
This week on What's in Your Kitchen, we taste taita kimanga, steamed rice, and chicken adobo, courtesy of our guest cook, Dominic.
We don't put chumvi because there is, this is our cooking stick.
Okay.
Now we use...
I don't take all.
Just one piece.
Why? See, you are cooking for me.
For the rest.
No, but you are cooking for me. You are not cooking for the rest. Achana na the rest. Awako.
Nchi za ng'ambo, Mheshimiwa Alfred Mutua. Mheshimiwa Alfred Mutua atatakiwa kujibu maswali kutoka kwa Seneta James